Welcome to this presentation brought to you by the Oneonta Amateur Radio Club. This video was recorded during our meeting on February 15th, 2021. Our presenter is Brian Webster, amateur radio call sign N2KGC, that's November 2 Kilo Golf Charlie. He has been an amateur radio operator for over 30 years. He is the coordinator for the Catskill region of the Western New York District of the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, ARES, and is the radio officer for the Otsego County Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, known as RACES. Brian also works in the radio and wireless technology fields professionally with his wireless mapping and communication systems engineering company. Without further ado, here's Brian's presentation about packet radio.
All right, this evening's presentation is going to be on packet radio, more from the user's perspective, not the fully geeked out network building side. Let's see, share screen. Where am I? I got too many screens open. There we go. Packet radio. It's not APRS, and that'll be a confusing statement to most because APRS technically uses packet radio. But this is more about our connected packet network and how we use it, what it does, and what you can do with it as an individual ham. So packet radio, it's a connected data system over radio. Above HF frequencies, the speeds are typically from 1200 to 9600 baud, with 1200 baud being the most common. That is also the same speed that's used on APRS. It uses what we call a terminal node controller, or a TNC. And there are many applications on the network that we can use that are beneficial to ham radio. So a network is one that's purposely built, and it's not ad hoc. Our networks are planned and the traffic is routed. Usually the networks are not on one single frequency, and node sites are on high locations to interconnect other mountaintop sites, and that's what builds our network. Most node sites involve multiple radios and TNCs, or the terminal node controllers. That TNC could be equated to what we used to call modems on the dial-up days, but they're nowhere near what a modem is. As I mentioned, there are some sort of routing involved, and then the links between the sites are called backbones. Let me switch screens here. Can you see my map, John? Okay, thanks, Dave. All right, this is our current packet radio network for the New York Net, EastNet. In our immediate area, we've got nodes in Stamford, Oneonta, my house, Cherry Valley, Montgomery County, up in Saratoga County. There's 2 nodes up there, one in Fulton County, Albany. And we have a new one we talked about at the Shenango meeting that's in South New Berlin. That's there for Shenango County. Then we go a little bit to the west in New York, and we've got stations in Oswego County, Wayne County, Ontario County, and a couple of these are off air right now because of silent keys. Then this network also links down into Connecticut, New England, New York City, and northern New Jersey. All these little push pins are our node locations. And then we have a subset of the network that's out, a couple of sites out in Indiana. And there's some sites down in Florida. Those are all these straight lines that you see. That's systems that are linked by the internet, which we try not to do, but. Are we back to my PowerPoint presentation now? Can you guys see that? All right, Dave. Very good, thanks. All right, so what can we do on packet radio? Well, one of the most common things or is most easily understood is that we can do email that's connected to the internet. And we can do that with a number of programs. One of them is using the Winlink program that a lot of you are familiar with. There are RMS gateways on our packet network. On our local nodes, there's a program called AX Mail that does both mail and fax. You can log in, immediately get an account created, and get an email address that will route right to the internet. You could send a regular internet email to somebody that you know they're can be a non-ham without any problem. Keeping in mind though that this is very slow, and you don't want to do pictures and large file attachments. One of the other things you can do are DX clusters. For any of you who like to spot DX and everything, these days it's not so bad to do it while you're connected to the internet because most people are connected 24/7. But back in the days when it was dial-up modems and long-distance phone calls on one phone line in the house, these DX clusters were something that the hams loved because they could do their DX spots and not have to tie up the phone line. We also have a couple of systems, chat rooms and chat servers. And one of the things we're trying to get people acclimated towards and trained towards using Packet is that we can use the chat rooms for things like they do on Echolink or on NetLogger. When you're running nets and things like that, you can be logged into the chat servers and you be typing information and such that doesn't necessarily need to go out on the voice channel and interrupt the flow of any net that might be going on. We have bulletin board systems, or what we call BBSs. And a BBS is one of the precursors to what we have with email. We had BBSs before we had email addresses, and we used to be able to send bulletins as well as personal messages worldwide, as long as you knew where someone's bulletin board system was and what their bulletin board address was. It was very much like internet email. And that's that's how we used to sell ham gear. We used to do satellite predictions and things like that because we would connect to the AMSAT bulletin board and get the Keplerian elements for the satellites and load them onto the bulletin boards, and people could log in and request a particular satellite's pass for a couple of days, and it would spit out a message that told them when the satellite would be visible. You can also do what they call keyboard to keyboard chat, where two users can see that they're both online and they can connect to each other and just type back and forth and chit chat along. So it's kind of like a chat system, but it's just between two users. And we also have systems where we can connect to and immediately spin up a database if we needed to run a shelter or something like the Canoe Regatta or some other event where we need to run data from multiple stations, log it into a central computer and keep track of that. So we have servers that are running that we can start a database without having to set up a special server. There's a little bit of training to be able to do that, but we can do it from the standing packet system as it exists today. So how does an individual use the network? You create what we call a user station, and a user station consists of a computer of some sort, a radio, an antenna obviously for your radio, and some sort of modem or TNC device. The modem or TNC can be a sound card, software driven, or a hardware TNC unit. These modems, TNCs, are very similar, but not always the same as APRS trackers or APRS modems. Quite a few of the APRS units can be used for connected packet, all depending on how your radio is interfaced to your TNC. So with a user station radio interface, you've got 4 basic connections from your TNC to your radio. You got your receive audio line, your transmit audio line, a ground, and then there's a push to talk line. Not much unlike what they do on a speaker mic. And the push to talk is hardware where it's typically grounding something and literally pushing the microphone. Push to talk by using Vox or voice operated transmit does not work very well in a connected packet system. And because the radio needs to switch between transmit and receive very rapidly, because unlike APRS, every time you send a data packet out, you're expected to get what they call an acknowledgement packet back, and that happens very quickly. And if the radio is a Vox radio, typically it doesn't switch back fast enough to get that acknowledgement packet, and eventually you get disconnected because the system thinks you're not there because you're not acknowledging the data. Your radio requirements to get on packet. So in almost all cases as a user, a simple 2-meter radio is all you need. And the 2-meter radio does not need PL tone capability, which for a lot of people, they can find people that will give away a 2-meter radio because it doesn't transmit PL and all the repeaters have gone to PL. And so they think that radio is useless. A low power radio works very well for most people on packet on the user ports. HTs or handhelds work well with the exception of the new Chinese radios. And the Chinese radios don't work well because most of them have a software-defined receiver, and the time it takes for the receiver to activate after you release the push-to-talk button typically is not fast enough to get that acknowledgement packet, much in the same way the Vox doesn't work well. Your interface cable to the TNC or sound card is obviously required. Your outdoor antenna. HTs using a rubber duck usually don't work well for packet because the RF energy off the antenna gets into the cable between the TNC and the radio, and in most cases will cause the radio to stay locked in transmit mode. The computer requirements, they don't have to be much. Any computer that can act as a terminal, for those of you who are familiar with terminals, will work with a hardware-based TNC. You could actually have an old dumb terminal. If any of you are around, worked on networks in the 70s or 80s, where people have what they call dumb terminals. It was just a keyboard and then typically not a mouse, because most of those systems back then didn't have GUIs, and a monitor. A hardware TNC will hook to those, and the TNC itself is a smart enough computer that you don't even need a computer, so to speak. If you do use a computer, there are various programs that will work fine for packet, and they can be specialized packet programs. They can be something as simple as the common terminal programs like PuTTY, and anything in between. And but then there's the sound card modem TNCs that people tend to use if you don't already have a hardware-based TNC, because sound card packets you can get on the air very cheaply because the software exists as free. And so the common sound card software programs, one of them is Direwolf. Another one is U7 or UZ7HO. Another one is the AGW Packet Engine. And Windows has most of these programs available. Oh, I guess I got to fix that spelling error. Available for the packet programs for sound card. There are versions that run under Linux, and of course, because Linux, the Raspberry Pis are included in that. And there are some Macintosh programs for the software to run on TNC. So as I just showed you on my Google map, but this is a static map of where our network exists. So anything that you see there can interconnect to each other, and you can route information around there. Oh, that went quick. All right. So I went through that quite quickly because I want to go to a live demonstration. Let's get rid of this. Get rid of this. Fire up this. Alrighty, let's see here. I guess I gotta start a screen share again. So I'm going to log into my node only because it's on my local network. I can't hook up both the radio and TNC at my house like I can in other places. So when you log into a packet system, you're typically going to get what they call a node prompt. And so in this case, it's just simple text-based. And I'm right now connected to my local node. But I'm going to connect to FlexNet. because that's what most of you are going to connect to on the user port. So let's talk about user ports. We've got a number of them available around the area. There's one in South Berlin that covers Shenango County, and that's on the frequency of 147.540. And we've got one in Cherry Valley, the NC2C site. That's on 147.48. There's one in Oneonta on 147.51. There's also one in Stamford on Mount Utsiantha, which has tremendous coverage. That's on 145.77. There is a node up in Saratoga that some of you could probably reach, and that's on 145.01. You can connect to any one of those user ports and be connected to the network. So once you'll connect to any of these systems, you're on what they call the FlexNet system. Now, some people may be used to a packet if you've done it in the past. There are what most people refer to as nodes, or those are spots on the network that you can connect to that might have services or the ability to do any number of things, whether it's the DX cluster, chat, or what have you. In FlexNet, we use what they call D for destinations. It's what people would consider nodes, but the reason we use FlexNet is because it's a routed system. I don't have to know how to get to other places. So I'm going to do a D command here, ask for the destinations. And right now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. So we've got 25 destination nodes here, which is actually more than that. So what you're looking at here is this table of destination nodes. And so starting from the upper left, K1YON, he's in Connecticut. And you'll notice there's what they call the SSIDs after the call sign. And K1YON 1-1 is a particular node that's a special purpose one. But then you go to the right and you see K1YON 2-14. That means you can connect to anything with the SSID of K1YON-2 right up to 14, and it'll connect to various things. So you'll see a lot of this stuff. In this case, let's see, Rusty's not looking real good. But let's connect to one of our nodes. So NC2C is the Cherry Valley node, and that's got SSIDs of 1 through 9. So I'm going to do C for connect, and then do NC2C-1. That's going to go out over my radio, and right now it's going through the Oneonta node, and then directly to the NC2C node in Cherry Valley. It's doing all this at 1200 baud, and you're seeing it real time, so that's pretty quick. And you get a connect message, and it tells everyone there's a PC and it's on FlexNet. When you connect to a node, you can do what they call an I command for info. And we type I, and we'll wait for the Cherry Valley node to send us our information back. And a little bit of a help menu comes up. And it's kind of your help menu. If most nodes that you can connect to, you can type H for help. Actually, I don't want to do that on this one. It's a long file. You can do a question mark, and usually you get a brief little help command. No, it didn't want to send on that. I guess I don't have it set up on that one. Well, let's do an H command. And I'm going to regret doing this because it's a very long file. And at 1200 baud, it's going to take a while to send this. So when you connect, you can see that there's various information that is broadcast out. So you can figure out where you're going to, what you want to do, what commands are available. And let's see how long this one goes. Remembering that this is 1200 baud, maybe I can turn my radio on. Well, if you want to hear the packets, but I'll do it. You'll hear the long packets coming from the node, and then you'll hear a brief burst, which is me transmitting back my acknowledgement packet. And now it's going to make a liar out of me. So you hear those long data packets coming in, then all of a sudden it pauses and you're a quick little burst. That's me sending my acknowledgement back, and it says, okay, I got all that, send me more. And that's what it's doing right now, and you're watching it on the screen. And I don't know, could you guys hear that? John, did you hear the, or Dave? I can see your face right now. Could you hear the packets through my microphone?
I could hear it a little bit, not much.
All right, hang on. Let's do this again then. I'll put my microphone right down there.
I hear Shenango County on the scanner.
Now, normally you don't get that much data all at once, but since I'm dumping a huge file back to my stations from the Cherry Valley node, there's a lot of data to send. And that's one of the reasons why we like FlexNet, because FlexNet will take that 1200 baud channel and really cram it full of information. And you can see it scrolling across my screen. I'm going to see if I can stop it right now. Probably not. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to terminate this. Start it back up again. All right, so one of the other things that we could do, I guess I better start sharing my screen again so you guys can see it. Let's do that. We have what we call BBSs. So I'm going to connect to N2KGC-4 on any node. And if you see a -4 call sign or SSID, that's going to mean there's a bullet board system that's there. So I connected to N2KGC-4, and it tells me this is the BBS it's running. And right now it tells who's assigned. Now, when you first connect to a bulletin board, it's going to ask you for your name, your zip code, and your home BBS. If you're going to run on the Oneonta system, the BBS will be N2KGC. If you're over Norwich, it's going to be the KP3FT or any other bulletin board that you find that you like to hang out on. But once you get connected to the bulletin board, one of the things you want to do is read bulletins. So one of the things, the commands is L for list, and list all the bulletins that it's got sitting there of things you might want to watch or read, excuse me. The bulletin board sends you 29 or 24 lines, then it pauses saying, do you want to keep going? You want to quit? What do you want to do? So right now I've got 24 lines here on my screen, and I'll hit OK because I'll get another 24 lines. And these are various, if you look at these columns, so on the left, you've got the message number, and all the B's mean that they're bulletins that are either been forwarded or that are bulletins coming in, the size of the file. It tells the who. So like there's different message groups. This first one, there's people who like to keep track of earthquakes. So this goes to equake, and it's the root is at worldwide. And this person who injected this message into the system, their call sign is CX2SA. Tells you the date and the time that it came in, and then the subject. So there's a magnitude 5.1 earthquake in Vanuatu, wherever Vanuatu is. But so if I wanted to read one of these messages, I could, let me try to pick up one that's going to be a small message. I can read, so let's say this one down here close to the bottom, Gates SP of 1400. So that's number 15778 or 788. So I want an R for read, and I type in that message number 15788, and that message will come back to me. and it sends me 24 lines, and it's got all the routing. I've got all that turned on, but I can turn that off to make the message smaller. So this is a list of registered IP addresses. I'm going to abort this because I don't want to read that long, boring message. And I don't think it's going to let me abort. Maybe I got to do a capital A. Nope, it's going to make me watch the whole thing, isn't it? I got to fix that. Let's see if it'll just send it to me all at once. Nope. All right, so I finally got to the end of that message. And so now I can hit enter again. I think it's going to send me more messages. And I've had enough of that, so I can do A for abort. And now I'm back to the command prompt for the BBS. If I had personal messages, I would get notified that I've got 2 messages, whatever, 1 message to be read, and I can read those message numbers as well. Those aren't bulletins sent to everybody. They're just personal ones sent to me. But now I want to get out, so I can do either a B for buy or Q for quit. We use quit on most of the FlexNet systems, so I'm going to quit. And so one of the other things we've got is an email server here. And so I'm going to type mail. That'll go to the mail server. And it says I have 6 messages, and I've already read them, but I'm going to send a message. I'm going to send a personal. 2. Let's see, John, or who wants an email sent to him from Packet? Somebody give me your email address.
AC Harley Hero at AOL.com.
Army Hero?
Harley.
Harley Hero.
Yep.
HARELY at AOL.com?
It's HERO.
Oh. At AOL.com, right?
Yeah, you got it.
And that's probably not going to go because I backspaced. So it'll ask me the subject line. I hit enter. Then I can type my message. Then I can type whatever I want. But then if I hit the \EX, that'll be the end of message. And it'll ask me, do you want to deliver? And I'll say, yep. And request to deliver receipt. No, I don't need that. And that message is gone.
Cool.
So I'm going to quit out of the mail server. And I'm going to go to connect into the Flex side because I'm not. So we talked about chat servers. There's 2 different type of chats that we can do. We can do one locally on the node. So normally I do a C for connect and a space and a call sign. But if I just connect to the node and then I do a C and then just hit enter, it'll connect me to the chat node. And it'll ask me what channel. So on a chat node, you can set up any number of channels. I think you can do up to 38 on a local node, and I think up to 38,000 on one of the other major servers. So I'm going to connect to channel 22. And so I can exit by using the / and the Q. John or Matt, are you guys on Packet right now? Are you going to try to connect in?
I am working on it. I had a work issue I did take care of that came up. So give me a few minutes and I'll be there.
All right. Matt, are you on Packet or not?
I am. Just got to switch.
If you're on Cherry Valley, you can stay there.
Okay.
You can just connect to N2KGC-1. Well, connect to Cherry Valley and then connect to N2KGC-1. So, back to why are we doing Packet? Well, Packet doesn't require the internet. It doesn't require any other infrastructure. And these 2-meter signals can go a long way. And with all the user ports that we have are scattered around the 3-4 counties, we have the ability to talk to each other without any internet and get information back and forth across. So I'm sitting on the chat node right now waiting for someone else to connect. And maybe it'll be John, maybe it'll be Matt, maybe it'll be both here, but let's see if Matt pops in here in a second. But again, it's a way to sit there, and when they start typing, you're going to see their call sign and whatever their message is. If any of you ever remember being in like the AOL chat rooms back in the day when that was a fun thing to do, these are not much unlike those. Or if you use Echolink and you like to use the chat window when you're with people on voice on Echolink, or if you use NetLogger, if there are any nets that you check into and they say, hey, we're on NetLogger, and people check in so that way you can see who's next in the list for the net. And when your turn's coming up and such, they like to use NetLogger. There's no reason you can't use the chat node to do that as well. And again, that can be used without the internet. How you doing, Matt?
Well, it says I'm connected.
Where are you connected now, to N2KGC?
Yeah, I was through NC2C-1. Now I'm on 2KGC-1.
Okay, then just hit C and then hit enter. That'll get you in the local chat node. And I'm on channel 22. Come on, Bessie. You can do it.
What's the IP address when you're there's like a standard IP address for your local computer? Like
Just local host?
local host, that's what I'm looking for. One word?
Yep. Which is normally 127.0.0.1, I think. I have no idea what you're doing, John, that you've got to do that, but. Matt, are you not connecting or what's going on there? Paula Goya, are you still on here?
Yes.
Does any of this sound familiar?
You know, it's been. I was just thinking of Chris Karpinski and Don
Russ, N2Cs.
Don Russ, and that was like 30 years ago.
All of that because that's when I first got licensed. Absolutely.
It was like 1990. Yeah, some of this is familiar, and I'm taking notes because I would like to get a setup going again.
All right. So if you look at my screen here, you'll see that Matt got in, and you see his call sign KD2HKB, and we have a logon message, so we know that Matt's now logged in, and I can type hello to Matt, and I hit enter, and let's see if he sees it. And of course,
I kind of remember those keyboard commands, the C and the D and backslash, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
It's the same thing happened when I was talking to the Norwich Club. There's a couple of old packeteers like, oh yeah, I kind of remember those commands. And everybody may be like, oh my goodness, all this tech stuff, this stinks. Well, 1200 baud, you don't really want to be pushing a lot of GUIs and graphics, but there are programs that you can use that will give you that GUI experience. All right, there's Matt's message. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of neat. And if John checks in, we'll see his call sign come in if he types something. I forget what the upper limit is, but it's the limit of the number of people on the chat node far exceeds the number of hams we have around here, and it certainly exceeds the number of hams that were who have packet.
Hey, Brian, Lynn here.
Yes.
Is this part of, can you use this for part of the NTS? You know,
So the bulletin board systems do pass NTS traffic. Yes, they do.
okay.
We don't actively do that, but the systems are set to automatically route the NTS traffic. Also, if you've done any reading on like the Winlink system, if you connect to the network and see anything with an SSID of -10, typically that is set up to be a Winlink RMS Gateway. Now that takes special Winlink software to do it, although you can just log in manually. I wanted to demonstrate that, but I still don't know what my Winlink password is because I've forgotten it because I don't use it. So it's not good for me to try to do a demo on Winlink right now, just because I can't get into the system.
Okay.
But oh, see, Matt's learning how to use Packet as we go here.
Oh, that's really funny because it butchered it when I on your screen. That's
Probably.
not what I typed.
How many times did you hit backspace? As soon as you try to backspace, if you don't have the settings right, it gets jumbled up. So
Yeah.
so the network is there, and there are other programs, like there's a program called Outpost that you can set up to connect to the bulletin board system that will download all the bulletins offline. You can set it to check, say, once an hour or once every 2 hours, and it'll download the bulletins and put them on your screen, very similar to what an email program or something like Outlook or Thunderbird, if you use those. You can have a GUI interface at your local computer to make this text stuff a lot less boring than it can be in a plain old terminal mode. But so we're connected here. And so I want to disconnect from this chat node because I want to show you what we've got. And to do any command, I'm going to use the / and Q for quit. And now I'm out of the chat node. But now there's this other command that we can do called converse. So converse is going to send me over the internet from my node. No, why is that not? Did this to me the other night too. Let's see if I spell it right, if it does anything. Invalid command. How about CONV? No. All right. /Q. Links. Oh, let's quit here. Oh. There's something I don't have set up properly. I've got to program the node so that we connect to what they call Hub NA or Hub North America. And that's where people from all over the world are actually connected in. And we can have like a statewide or a regional, or you can just get a bunch of people that want to connect to Converse, not just on our local node, but through links to the backbone network worldwide. So there's also, when we go away from the FlexNet and some of these nodes, we can jump over to what they call the NetROM side, and I can do a nodes list. So rather than destinations, there's nodes. And you'll see a list here, and there's probably about 72 of them if I counted them up. But NetROM has something a little different than FlexNet. It's got what they call an alias as well as the call sign. So like if you look at this third column on the second row, ARECS, that's the Aries in New York City. And I'm going to connect to that. And that's the JNOS. I'm going to try to connect to Converse there. Let's see if it'll let me do that. Oh yeah, I'm on the conference server. So now I'm connected to the conference server down in New York City. This is the Hub North America that I talk about. All right, so if I do a / and U for users, no, that's not the right command. You got to read the screen a lot of times to do things right. / W for who. That's what they want. So now it's telling me, I initially, when I connect to this, it comes in on 147.436. That's a New York City channel that they set up automatically. And but these are all the channels that are active on that node right now, and then who's connected to them. So there's like an Italy, a Greece, a Romania one. There should be one. Is there a 68 channel? Yes. So there's a New York channel called 68. So I'm going to go /C 68. And let's see if it jumps into that channel. Yep, I'm on channel 68 now. And I know that call sign. I don't know if he's paying attention to his keyboard or not. I don't know why it's not connecting over the packet network. Because that means, Matt, you could probably do the same thing to connect in if you connect in to KGC-2 and then jump over if you want.
We have tips for that too. Or get a low interest credit card for your.
And Paul's got failing hearing. I can tell by how loud his television is now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, I'm going to quit out of this anyways. It just shows what we can do. And then I got to do a buy from Charles's node. That should reconnect me back to my node. Yep, there we are. I want to do a nodes list again. I'm looking for BPQ, or not BPQ, Winlink stations. And so anything that you see all these SSIDs behind call signs, we're looking for a -10. So in this first column, third one from the bottom, you'll see RMS ZEN or PY2 ZEN-10. So that's an RMS Winlink gateway. If someone wanted to check their Winlink email, they could connect to that one. There's other ones at various times. So these networks and these nodes that are available are dynamic. These you'll see updated every 15 minutes. On the FlexNet side, they update every 6 minutes. So it's an actually live routable network that you can get to things. It's not just something you try to connect and get a dead attempt at getting there. So let's see. Can I connect to a DX cluster? Let's see. Yep. There's DXCZEN. So let's do that. DXCZEN. All right. So I'm now connected to this DX cluster and who knows where, but maybe it just booted me. Yeah, I guess it did. Don't know why. Where's one of the local ones? Oh, there's one. Connect DX URO. Oh, there we go. So this is the DX cluster in Connecticut. And now we'll start to see any DX spots that come through. And you just sit there and they just beep and come across the screen. So if there's no active spots going on right now, this is going to get extremely boring. Oh, there was one that just came in. So there's a DX spot. It comes in from EA4 FME on frequency 7049.1. It was spotted by G3VGZ. He's running FT4. So that's just a DX spot. So it comes across your packet screen. So if you're remote, you're not by the internet or whatever, you can get on the DX cluster. Now I think if I do /quit, no, how about /buy for B? Nope. How about just a regular Q for quit? All right. Now let me quit. So I'm logged out of that DX cluster. So that's another thing you can do on the system. And you can do what they call node hopping, where you can connect to any one of these stations you see in these big lists, and then hit the I for info command to find out, hey, where is this place? And it's kind of neat to jump all over the world. So again, it's back to, you could have a simple radio and either a sound card, and you got to build the interface cable. Most people, a lot of people already have some sort of interface, like a signal link or a rig blaster or something like that. And as long as you're not using Vox, voice operated transmit, to key your radio up, anything you're using for FT8 or PSK31 and such, as long as you're on the 2 meter frequencies with it, it should work fine for packet than using a sound card packet program. And again, it's one of the interesting things about this is that some of the nodes are set up to be able to connect to other ones via IP. If any of you guys are interested in IP networking, we've got the whole 44 net that's dedicated to amateur radio, and these nodes are set up to be able to connect from one to the other. They use them for more than just packets. Sometimes they also have people set up for the DMR repeaters or Echolink remote nodes and such. Those obviously don't work real well over these 1200 baud connections, but it's all part of the worldwide networking. And so that's another aspect. If you want to learn computer networking and such, this is a great playground to learn that equipment and learn those protocols and how things work. And the neat thing is that you can turn your volume up and you can hear things happening at 1200 baud that at, internet speeds you don't get a chance to listen to, and a lot of times even watch the traffic. So it's neat to be able to turn the volume up and listen to it and hear things and how the traffic moves and things of that nature. So I've been blathering on here and probably being somewhat boring to some of you, but who's got any questions for me, that things that they are unsure of or want to learn about in packet?
I remember a while back, maybe 6 months ago, you put on the Facebook site there, our site, something about this, and it had some links or something you could go to.
Yes, what particular things you want to? Do you want to learn about packet, or you want to learn about the sound card systems, or what? I'll have to post them on.
About packet.
Okay, I'll put those on in the comments below what the meeting announcement was tonight. I forgot to do that today. That's a great point, Steve, and I'll make sure I do that, because that was
Okay, good. Thank you.
quite rude of me not to do that. It is Monday after all. Kevin James, you got yours all set up and ready to go?
Yeah, Brian, I tell you what, you sparked my interest here, and I just need to set a couple things up, and definitely I would love to get in and play a little bit. So appreciate the presentation.
Like I say, these radios that you can use, is somebody like, oh, I can't use that radio anymore, it doesn't do PL, and they make great packet radios. In fact, all the packet user frequencies I mentioned, you don't want to have PL on them. You don't want to have that turned on at all. But there's also other radios, like if any of you got the Kenwood radios used for APRS or the Alinkos that have the built-in TNCs, you can quickly switch them over and use them on the connected packet network instead of using them on APRS. Many of you may also have some sort of APRS tracker. A majority of them we can make work on packet as well, all depending on how you have your push-to-talk interface set up for your radio. Many of them probably you bought an interface radio or an interface cable to go for the radio that you plan on using for APRS. It should work just fine. In fact, Matt, I think that's what you're using tonight, aren't you? Are you using that Alinko with a built-in modem or the built-in TNC?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm using DR135 with TNC built in. Yep.
That makes for a nice clean installation, because then you're just hooking the serial port up for your computer. One of the things that brings a point up is if you're going to use sound card packet, it's easy to get the audio in and the audio out, and from the sound card to the radio. But the push to talk is normally the hard thing, and the software likes to use a serial port to use either the RTS or CTS line to key up the push to talk button on the radio. But most people don't have serial ports on their computers anymore. So you'll want to get a USB to serial adapter. And then you can plug it into your USB port and have a serial port to then finish the interface cable for the push to talk. If you have a radio that'll do 2 meters that you've got or rig control or cat control, you should be able to set that up to use using the full rig control on the 2 meters if the radio will do 2 meters, and set up packet through sound card that way as well. Paul, how many old TNCs do you still have? Or did you get rid of them all?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't. I'd have to go down and look in the file cabinet. I don't think I have one.
Okay.
Now, Brian,
Yes, Dave.
I've got everything I need to do it, except
Okay.
it's the computer part that I don't really understand, I guess.
So tell me
You know,
what
the programming and
what if-
stuff like that.
what have you got that you say you've got everything you need? Because
I've got the radio, I've got the TNC, I got the cables, I got the computer.
Okay. So a simple program like I'm using tonight, it's a free download. It's called Putty, Putty. It's some wood putty. You can use that, and you have to set that software up to talk to your COM port instead of trying to go out on the internet or whatever. And then once you do that and you set the COM port for your cable and your TNC, and you know, that's a little fiddling with settings, and I can certainly help you walk through that. Once you do that, your TNC starts to talk to you and says, all right, you got to do things like set your call sign. So you do MY for my call sign and MY space and type in KD2ERR. And then once that's set, that's pretty much all you have to set. And then you try to connect to somewhere, you dial your radio in on the proper frequency, and you try to connect to something. And it really helps if you've got a second radio like an HT, so you can hear what's happening and hear like the packets like I tried to get everybody to hear tonight. And then you know, if you connect to a local user port, it comes back with a connected to, and you'll get some sort of message on the screen, and you just start playing and typing. You can't hurt anything when you start playing once you connect to something. You know, you'll do bad commands. You won't use the right commands. It'll say, huh, or it'll say invalid command, calling an invalid. I always like that one. And, you know, so you'll do some of that. But that's how you learn. I mean, but you're not going to hurt anything by playing. And, but yeah, Putty is an interesting program. What TNC or modem do you have, Dave? You're muted. You're still muted, Dave. There you go.
There you go. It's a TNCX.
Okay. So that runs in what they call KISS mode. That's what they call a dumb TNC. Not that it's dumb. It just makes the audio tones and interfaces to the radio. So you'll need a different program that talks to the TNCX in KISS mode, and there are a lot of them out there. I'll have to look up a couple of them. So Putty won't work in your case. I don't think it will. I think it's just KISS only. But there's programs like the AGW term. John Rudolph, what program did you pull up the other night that you used for Direwolf? There was a program.
Well, that's what I'm trying to remember. That's why I'm not online. I'm pretty sure I just used Putty to connect to Direwolf, but I just realized I have to make some my configuration file for Direwolf didn't hold.
There's also a program that you can find out there, Dave, called BCT or Baycom Terminal. That one will probably work just fine. There's any number of them, but I'll put those links in when I make the comments tonight too on the meeting announcement, so that you can go find one of those programs. That's probably where you struggled the most then, Dave, not realizing that the TNCX is just there to make those audio tones, and it's just there to accept the serial data. So the program itself has to do all the smarts. They exist. They're free. They're not hard to do. We just got to find you the right one and find you one that you like as well. In fact, if you go to the TNCX website, if it's still up and running, there's probably, and you just ask for the terminal program, it probably recommends a couple of them. But yeah, let's get you set up. If you've got all that hardware, Dave, and you've got the cable seems to be the hardest part for most people. And then, of course, figuring out the settings. But once we figure those out, that we can do either on a repeater or whatever on a Zoom call if you want to do that.
Dave, is this the same one that we tried at the Grange Hall a couple times? Is it the same TNC?
It might be, yes.
I remember we had an issue where it wasn't picking up the sound or it wasn't transmitting your audio. If I remember there was something where there was a gap there, and I just don't remember what it was.
But I think too we were trying to use a Bofang HT, so
there with that.
Might have been part of the problem.
There was that, but there was something with I remember there being something where I think it was keying and it wasn't the audio wasn't passing or whatever, but we just have to look at that to make sure it's happening like it's supposed to.
Or you could try another radio. The Bofang probably won't work well, Dave, but
right.
I have to pull out one of my Walksoons because I don't know if they exhibit the same problem. They might be a little better, but also I've got one of my radios for APRS here is actually a Kenwood HT, so that same cable for the Bofang, because it's the Kenwood plug, works just fine. So if you've got that same cable for the Bofang, if you've got a Kenwood HT, then you can try that one. If not, we've got, if you really want to try this, and I've got radios that we can set up, and I've got a drawer full of interface cables for various radios as well that I've got floating around here. So if anybody wants to really try it, we can get hardware set up and get you moving forward to play with it. And then eventually, once you figure out where your comfort zone is with that, we can improve your system. Or, like one of the things like Matt's got, he's got that Alinco. The Alinco just has a serial cable out of the back because the TNC is built right into it. So he just takes the cable out of the back of the radio, plugs into the computer, and that's like a great portable packet station. A lot less interface cables, and works really nice.
One thing to mention on that is, you've kind of got to pay attention when you buy your, if you're going to buy an Alinco radio, because Alincos by default will have a DB9 connector on the back. That does not mean it has the TNC built in. That gives you the interface that you can connect to a TNC.
It's an internal board, right? Yeah.
But if you can order it with the TNC built in, or you can add the TNC board yourself. So you just got to make sure that just because it's got a DB9 connector on the back does not mean it's automatically got the TNC in there. Also earlier you were mentioning TNC or KISS mode programs. I was doing a little looking here, actually on the TNCX site. It says the downside to KISS mode TNC is that it cannot be used with a simple terminal program like conventional TNCs can. You must use software that supports KISS mode. Most packet programs these days do support KISS. Examples are WinTNC for general purpose keyboard-to-keyboard communications.
That would work fine, yep.
UIView, WinAPRS, Mac APRS, and Zaster for APRS operations. PackLink for Win2K email, and HEWPE packet engine. One thing that it does show here as a note is if you need mailbox functionality or need the functionality of the older command and converse modes, a KISS mode TNC will not be adequate for your needs. However, if you're planning on running the TNC to run modern software that supports KISS mode, there's no reason to pay for any additional functionality that you'll never use.
Well, and one thing I want to add to that, Matt, because you mentioned the AGW packet engine, which was actually one of the most common software TNCs, but recently it used to be free, now it is paid. So that's $49
but
now, but there's other options.
There's a separate terminal program that works with AGWP
Right.
that's free. So that would work with something like the TNCX or any other KISS TNC. That the AGWP Pro is the full suite of software, but you can use that terminal program only. But the WinTNC, Dave, is probably one that you want to investigate because I think that's free. That's more modern than some of the other ones like Baycom Terminal and such. So it'll probably give you a nice GUI on their desktop anyways. And that would work on the KISS TNC quite well for the connected type of packet. The other ones mentioned are all APRS programs, which work fine with that, but that includes all the APRS functionality, which this connected part of the network doesn't have APRS built into it. So, Dave, do you have any other radios that you could use other than the Baofeng?
Oh yeah, I was going to use my 857.
So the 857, if you have the mini DIN connector cable on the back,
yep,
I've got that one of those cables I made up, and I went to what my TNC is, and so if you make that's a great connector to use to have the push to talk, the receive audio, transmit audio, and ground, those 4 wires. The only thing you'll have to do on the 857, there's one of those advanced menus.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to set it for 1200 baud, not 9600 baud, because it uses a different pin for each one.
Right.
But if you set it for 1200 baud packet and wire the connector accordingly, that'll work really nice for packet and using your TNCX.
Yep.
So, and the nice thing is that's very frequency agile, so you can jump to the different user ports if you want. All right, who else had some questions? Steve, I see the smoke coming out of your head, so you're thinking hard.
No, I'm just thinking.
I just know you're always thinking. That's why I was picking on you. He's always got some
Brian,
project.
Brian, that TNCX is decent. I'm kind of looking at it on my cell phone.
They don't make it anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
The guy at Coastal Chipworks it was a ham and a kind of a cottage business for him, and certain parts became unavailable. But there are other similar type TNCs that are like that, and there are some that actually plug right into the top of a Raspberry Pi. There are a lot of inexpensive options out there, including the sound card versions, and sound card versions on a Raspberry Pi are very workable solutions as well.
I think MFJ bought out the
Yeah.
ENCX.
Yep, MFJ took over production, so it is now the MFJ 1270X packet controller,
which is not cheap, as I recall.
$149.95.
Yeah, that's awful expensive. You can buy hardware TNCs on eBay all day long for $30 to $50, or you can just deal with the pains of making a cable set up for a sound card version and do that a lot cheaper. I mean, if you've got hardware, great. Like I can certainly help you use it or utilize it, or if you pick it up cheap. But if you don't have hardware, my first recommendation is let's go through the pains of setting it up for a sound card setup and go that route, because you can get in a lot cheaper that way. I'm sure you can find someone, you can buy a radio even if you want a dedicated radio. They're typically under $50. And or sometimes people will just give you radios. In fact, I have radios here that I would give out that are 2-channel Motorola's that I would set up for 2 different packet user port frequencies, and the cables to make for the Motorola's are very easy because they use the home link connector in the front.
I think the Kenwood TMV71 has a TNC built into it.
It does. The APR, any of the Kenwood APRS radios, you can put them into what they call KISS mode, and they function really well as a TNC. Absolutely. Both the mobile and the portable. The portable is a little trickier because you just got to figure out how you're going to have the interface cable. I can't remember if that takes special connectors or how that particular radio works, but it functions well on packet. That I do know. Patrick, talk to me. Are you interested? You sit right under a nice user port there in Stanford. That's
Brian,
packet.
Excuse me. You don't.
Go ahead, Patrick. I'm picking on you now.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I've always been interested in it. When Mitch was around WU1Q, we did a lot of it, and I got somewhat familiar with it, but I find it fascinating. You're doing a great job, boss.
Well, I mean, the neat thing we talked about as well at the Norwich meeting is that, for the conspiracy theorists in all of us, if the internet starts to shut down or if they start to do content filtering on the internet level, everything that we do can circumvent all of that. We could actually move information around without the internet filters or the internet kill switch, should anything that draconian start to happen. That's one of the other aspects of being able to know packet networking and such, that if traditional channels start to fail or if the trustworthiness is come into question, we've got other ways to move information around on a worldwide basis when you start to look at the Winlink system and everything. So go ahead, John. Yeah, I interrupted you. What did you have to say?
I was just trying to remember what program I used for accessing it all. I'm having a heck of a time even finding whatever I used. So you don't have any recollection, do you?
For what? Just learning about packet or for the sound card stuff?
No, to connect to the TNC and do my.
So there was a guy, Buck Rogers, used to have. I think the website's still there. It's full of information on how to make cables to various radios. And I think is a KB4 WTD or something like that. But Buck Rogers, packetradio.com, I think was actually his website. And so that's always a great source of diagrams for various radios and cables and certain information about certain TNCs. I will post a basic packet radio information. Now, when you say book, John, I don't for which radio, which TNC were you setting up that you used it for? The Kenwood, or was it something else that you built? Because I know you got a couple different setups now.
No, well, I've got using my Yaesu 8900 with right now with the Signal Link. I didn't get my Cantronics working yet. I'm using Direwolf as my software TNC, but I don't remember what program I was using to access the TNC with.
I think you. So if you do Direwolf, I think they've got a terminal program right on their website. And again, that's a type of program that you could use just as easily, Dave, because that's designed to talk KISS. I think.
I feel like it was AGW.
Oh, you think? Okay, yeah, that's another.
It keeps failing whenever I try to open it, or it keeps giving me errors. So I'm kind of
so one thing anybody wants to remember, if you start to do things that are going to interface, if you've moved USB ports and you had something working before and it's not working now, and if something you had plugged into a USB port, you need to plug it back into that same USB port, because Windows does this nice thing of moving new assignments around, changes the COM ports on you, changes the settings. So if it's a serial to USB adapter, or if it's like your Signal Link and you plug that into a certain USB port, that's something that can easily get shuffled around on you. And means you got to go back and start over with a lot of your settings.
Just kind of for info, I've had, I run Linux mostly here, and I've had actually Linux do almost the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can leave something plugged in and all of a sudden it stops working. But that's because, when you rebooted that computer, some USB device came up faster than it did last time. So it now comes up higher in the hierarchy than it did before.
Yes.
I mean, luckily, most of the stuff is pretty good where it'll, say, hey, this is where it actually is. So, and redo itself. But
so for any of you that might think about doing this with a Raspberry Pi, sound card TNCs are very successfully done. You can find a lot of online web help and everything like that. The one thing you have to remember about a Raspberry Pi, though, is typically they've only got audio out. So you need to go buy a cheap USB sound card dongle. You can get them for like $5 or less on eBay. And that has the connectors for the audio in and the audio out. Just doesn't have the push to talk. Although sometimes the Raspberry Pis are very easy to do because you don't need a serial port. You can use one of the GPIO ports on a Raspberry Pi computer to trigger the push to talk. Most radios, by the way, to get them to go into push to talk, it's just a computer pin doing what they call pulling it to ground. It's just grounding out a pin on a radio that puts it into transmit, and then the audio out from the sound card is what's broadcast over the air. So typically you need some sort of pin from a computer to ground that out. And on a serial port, they would just do it with an RTS or a CTS line. On a Raspberry Pi, you don't need the USB to serial adapter because you can run a pin on a GPIO pin. If you've got a setup that's using a Raspberry Pi specifically, they say, oh, you want to hook your a line on pin 7 on the GPIO header and run that to your push to talk, and that'll key your radio up for you. So a Raspberry Pi can be quite a simple installation or packet, especially if you've got a cheap USB sound card dongle and use a GPIO pin to hit the push to talk. Works like a charm. Just takes a little more following the directions. And there's a lot of those how-tos out there with doing that.
That can be done on Ubuntu?
On Ubuntu on a Pi or just on a Linux box?
Well, the laptop has Ubuntu on it, but maybe I don't need that if I'm doing.
No, you can use a Ubuntu laptop, and again, it depends if you're going to use one of your hardware TNCs if they still work. Now you're just doing a basic terminal program. The thing that you're probably going to have to do is get a USB to serial port adapter to plug into your hardware TNC. But if not, if you're using a sound card one, yeah, there's plenty of how-tos on using it with Ubuntu. With that push to talk to ground is typically a little tricky for most people, but again, a USB to serial port dongle will typically work fine. In fact, if you end up going that route, I probably have a couple of dongles that have the old FTDI or the prolific chipsets that don't work with Windows anymore, that I'm pretty sure still work with Linux. And I've probably got one or two I can give you because they aren't usable on Windows anymore.
Those will work if you roll back the driver.
No, they have blocked that now. That rollback trick no longer works.
Really? I just did it this week with something.
It killed two of them. I had two Baofeng programming cables and it killed them both.
Yeah, I just programmed two Baofangs Friday. And I rolled back the driver and
don't be surprised. Don't be surprised when you get a Windows update and it no longer works. They even broke it on Windows 7 because my old Windows 7 computer won't work anymore either.
Might I say that's why I love running Ubuntu, because Ubuntu doesn't give a crap.
Right.
But for like Paul's info, I mean, doing the packet, the what I participated in tonight, I'm running Ubuntu Studio, so I'm running Ubuntu and I just used PuTTY. But I was also doing it with the Minicom. The Minicom terminal as well.
Does your laptop have a serial port, Paul? Or a parallel?
It's old. Well, the one I'm using is relatively old, so it might have one. I have to run downstairs and look.
Okay, if it's got a serial port, then it's real easy. Or if it's got an LPT port for a printer, most of the programs will also let you toggle a pin on a printer port, but most people have those less than they have serial ports. So, but all you're really doing is finding out the software that'll toggle a pin somewhere that'll put your radio, the push to talk to ground, and put it in a transmit mode.
Okay.
Just so you guys know, Paul's been around long enough that Paul used to be on Packet a lot, as well as the radio club that he had and the two schools that he worked at before he retired. Taught a lot of kids about networking and stuff on the Packet days. Even when they used to have bulletin boards on some of the amateur radio satellites. So you had to watch the predictions and you had the right software, and they were doing it at 9600 baud, and you could send bulletin board messages through a satellite, a couple times a day, which was a big hoot when you did that. And even the International Space Station sometimes will run regular traditional packet instead of the APRS stuff they've got going. That was always the challenge. How far can we move data around the world? How fast without the internet? John, did you find anything else as you were poking around the web there? Lynn, you must be overwhelmed with information here.
Just a little bit. I ran into a little bit of it, taking, reading for the exam and everything. I've got a Yazoo 7900, and I noticed that on the back of that it's got a 6-pin data port. Now that's going to be part of what I need to. That's
exactly what you want. That's that data port. And since that's a newer radio, you can probably buy one, or get one. Those mini data ports, the part that's tough with them is that they're hard to solder to. So a lot of times if you buy a cable that's got 2 plugs on it and just cut it in half, then you've got 2 of them you can use. That works really well better than just the cutoff part. You can take those pins and hook them up to whatever, whether it's a sound card setup, or if you get a hardware or any number of TNCs, we can put the right connector on the other end, and that will work wonderful for packet.
Yeah, because I know this computer that I got here was $25 HP at a garage sale, and this still has the serial port onto it.
That'll work perfectly then. So we take one of those, and actually you might even be able to buy a cable on eBay or something that has they call that the mini DIN data port. And if you get that to a DB9 serial port, that would plug into that computer just perfectly. That computer doesn't even need to be hooked to the internet. That would make a very nice little packet computer. I think you would enjoy that.
Oh, sweet, because it looks interesting.
There's a lot of sites that do cables like that.
Yes.
Like you say, for, I don't know, $15, $20, you can pick a cable already built.
It certainly eliminates a lot of problem areas if you're not sure what's wrong when it doesn't work right away. I always like pre-made cables for just that purpose.
Well, I know right now I'm trying to find a programming cable for this Yazoo, and it seems though everybody they're out of stock.
Yeah, they probably don't make them anymore. I might very well have it here. I've got some of the county races equipment, and I've got programming cables for like the 857 and such, and that may work on the, what is that you say, the 7900?
Yeah. I guess this is a discontinued model. It's an R and everything.
I might have a cable sitting here that, because when we bought all those radios, we bought various programming cables and software and such as well. So I might have one that you could borrow and program and then get all your channels loaded up.
Now, I noticed that on what is it, RT Systems?
Yep.
That there's 3 cables. There's one for the data port, and there's one that plugs into the speaker jack. But then there's also another one that looks like the old phone plug. Well, which one of them is actually what I need for the program? It's the
probably all the above. They probably all will work. No, I mean, because some of the radios have more than one way to plug into them. The one with the phone jack, I probably have that one here.
Okay.
There's a box.
What model radio is that?
7900.
7900. I'll look into it.
It's actually the same cable as the 8900 I just saw. So I do have it. Dave, you should have it.
Yeah, I've got one.
8900, 8900R, 8800, 78, 79. So
does it take the same? Does it take the same software?
Well, no, RT systems. It'll have to. They work on a specific model, and that's it. So,
okay.
Does Chirp work on that radio?
Yes.
Okay, so you just Chirp.
And just you can still use the RT system cable on Chirp.
Okay.
but you can't use the RT. You can't use a generic cable with RT systems anymore. They put a block in there so that you can't do so.
They get more money out of you.
Yep.
Because I asked a question on Facebook today on, you know, if chirp would work, and I was told no, that you know, that it could, you know, damage.
Yeah, everyone's always going to tell you that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few that are very adamant about that out there, that it'll brick your your radio, and it's not covered under warranty if you do, and you know. But I don't know. I have never heard of it happening. I mean, I guess anything's always possible, but like I said, I've never had an issue. A bunch of us have programmed a lot of different radios over time, so.
Yeah, because all I really need it for, the radio was gifted to me, and it was already pre-programmed, and you know, there's just some things I would just need to clean up, and you know, no big programming that I need to do.
By the way, you hear in John's radio the packets going on in the background, the burst, or what we call the brapping. You don't have to listen to that. You can turn the volume down with most setups, and you don't have to listen to it. It'll sit there quietly running. So
yeah, the volume knob is broke on that radio on my end, so I have to listen to it. I have the parts to replace it, but the shaft broke off. So
this is where I'll admit I feel lucky. I don't know if it's supposed to be this way, but on my Alinco setup, I actually cannot listen to the brapping. I can hear a little pop on the speaker when it's, you know, receiving and whatever, but I can turn the volume up. I don't get anything.
there might be a menu setting somewhere to mute the data or something, but
well,
it wouldn't surprise me if you can't. I mean,
right. It was as soon as I put it into data mode. So it's just like, hey, this is fine. It can just sit here all day long.
Yeah, it's like being on the internet, just really slow, and you don't have to listen to it. I mean, I turn it up just so that people who haven't heard it before, or I'll turn it up when I'm diagnosing and a new setup or something. But yeah, I don't like to listen to it all the time.
See, it doesn't, I mean, depends on what's going on, but I don't mind listening to it. And normally, you know, even if I keep it low enough, it's kind of nice to know sometimes that the things are working, and
absolutely,
you know, hear other activity and things like that. So
well, I did it for years like that, right, Paul? We were always listening.
So just kind of one other thing I was going to throw out there is I was pretty sure that MFJ also took over another part of Coastal Chipworks products. I know, Brian, earlier you mentioned doing packet on a Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
For a slightly more reasonable price, you can get the MFJ 1270 Pi, which is the Raspberry Pi TNC. That's $80. And that just sits, you know, plugs right on top of the Raspberry Pi.
And then you can probably get it, and you can probably buy a pre-made cable to go to the model radio you want. Then,
exactly.
Right? Yep.
I mean, I bought one from Coastal Chipworks before they shut down. So that's what I've been using as my home Zaster program, home Zaster setup. And I mean, that made it quite simple.
Yep.
Because, you know, you're using the Pi's onboard serial and going right into the TNC. I mean, it's still a KISS mode TNC, but, you know.
Well, and the other thing, too.
There's nothing wrong with any of those. I like them. They're not cheap compared to other options. That's all.
Right.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. And I was going to say the other thing, too, is there is some benefit, because especially using these software TNCs and stuff, you don't have to be on the same computer that TNC is. Like if you set it up on the Raspberry Pi with one of those, you can go set that at the other end of the house, or, you know, a different location, and then just you connect to it over your home network with any computer. So there is some flexibility. It's actually functions a lot easier than a lot of people would think. But that's actually what a lot of these TNCs are doing now, especially the software TNCs. Is everything is on
everything's on a port.
it's on a port that you're using, and even though you're on the same computer, it's actually connecting through IP to itself. So, you know, you can set it up, especially if you know, even if you don't want to play with Linux for whatever reason, you know, you can always just get it set up, stick it in a corner, and not worry about it. And that's one of the things I've been thinking about doing, is in order to get some of the RF away from my station, is setting it up at the other end of the house and then just accessing it over the, you know, on my shack computers using, you know, my home network.
But yeah, you can go as complex or as simple as you want. So in your case, Lynn, you've got an old garage sale computer that actually has a serial port. So we'll get you a serial port to a mini DIN connector, put it on that radio. It'll work like a charm. And then all you gotta do is worry about installing software that you can use on that computer. And that's easy to find too. The older software is pretty easy to come by. So you can start just basic like that. But then if you want to get into doing the networking and the fancy stuff and put it at the other end of the house on a different radio so that you can keep the other one for talking on the repeaters, you know, you can upgrade to that too. It's, and we've got all of us here with all the skill levels to play with all that stuff.
Oh, that's sweet. Thanks.
That's why this is what we do with ham radio. We uber geek out on this stuff. Dave, and that's probably something that, did you already buy the mini DIN to your TNC X?
Yes.
Okay, so again, I think that makes it on the 857. That's going to work really nice. And then, you know, once you get comfortable with packet, you're like, hey, I'd like to stay on, but I don't want to tie my expensive rig up. You know, I can give you one of these Motorola radios for the Races group, and you can set it up, and you know, we can make up the interface cable and stuff pretty easy.
I saw a video last night. It was from Ham Radio Crash Course.
Yep.
The YouTube channel.
Yeah, I like that guy.
He's got what they call a Mobi-linked TNC.
Yeah, that's a Bluetooth one.
And it's a Bluetooth, which hooks right to your computer via Bluetooth or your Android phone. So,
yeah, that one I haven't looked into. It works great for APRS. I don't know how well it works for connected packet.
Yeah, I didn't see much there. I knew it was for APRS. So.
Yeah, but I like those mobile links. I actually have a Bluetooth serial port adapter that I never quite got running right, that I wanted to take a Windows tablet and hook up to a radio TNC combination so that I didn't have to have the cables. And I haven't gotten through with that yet. But, and again, if someone's got, say, one of those Yaesu FT817s, and that'll do 2 meters, and you've got rig control, cat control, because you got a signal link or a rig blaster, as long as you're not using Vox for the push to talk, those can be made to work with sound card packet. It's kind of you know, once you get into packet and want to leave it running, it ties up an expensive radio. But again, once you get into packet and like it and want to stay on, we can come up with cheap radios to get your expensive one off packet duty.
Yeah, and you mentioned APRS because of that TNC. The nice thing is, if you want to run APRS, all you do is you use a different software program.
True.
You're still going to use the same software, TNC and all that, but you launch a different program and connect and
change the frequency on the radio.
Yep, you change the frequency on the radio. You put in your location manually if you want, instead of over a GPS, or you could somehow set it up with GPS. But all you do is go, and that's what I'm doing. I'm using the same exact setup here that I used for APRS for the Pumpkin Patrol, just using a different software.
What do you think, Steve? We're gonna get
I got what I need. I got an 857, and I have a signal link, and I have the cable for the 857. So I'm probably pretty well set up, except for software.
Yeah, and again, you can just start with basic software. Yeah, you could probably do sound card software. Like I said, just make sure your signal link's not set up to do Vox for push to talk.
Well, there's not really a lot of settings on the signal link. It's either, it works or it doesn't, at least the newer ones.
Okay.
I was going to do a little bit of reading on it. And I mean, I've been using, that's what I've been using as my signal link. and I mean, every once in a while, I mean, I did get disconnected, but like Brian got disconnected too, so it may not be related to the signal link. But I'm gonna play around. I'm working on getting an actual.
But any of you that
TNC
start playing with this stuff, ping us, and I'll be more than happy to offer suggestions. I haven't run a lot of this various hardware, but I keep current on it as far as reading about it, and a lot of the basics are the same, so I can offer things like, hey, check this, check that, and yeah, I think probably a lot of you have the hardware, like you said, Dave, Steve, you've got the stuff. You're probably not going to want to do it. Actually, your 703, Steve, would probably work perfect for this.
Can't do 2 meter though with mine.
You do 2 meter with your 703?
No, I can't.
Oh, the 703 doesn't do 2 meters?
No.
The 706 will.
Yeah, 706 will, yes.
In fact, that one works real well.
Yeah.
So you could use that as well. You could make a different interface cable for that.
Well, I think my 703 and the 857 take the same cable.
Quite possibly, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah. What 2 radios?
He's got an 857, but an ICOM 703 and a 706. A 703 doesn't do 2 meters, but a 706 does, and I think the 706 has a in on the back, as I recall.
I think, yeah, I believe so too. Because when I understand that after, I think mid to late 90s, that a lot of them, the manufacturers standardized on the same
the mini
DIN.
The only thing you want to do with the 706, Steve, just like in the 857, there are typically a buried packet menu.
Yeah.
And you can set it to either 96 or 1200 baud. And the difference is that it uses discriminator audio. Set it for 1200 baud, and the right pin on the mini DIN will be active so that the cable will work.
Okay.
That's something that some people will miss, because some radios factory default to the 9600 baud mode, and they try to hook things up and don't realize that hidden menu exists. And this will be even on the 2 meter mobiles. Those radios have those. So
see, I have the cable and the signal link hooked up on the 703 because that's where I do PSK 31.
Yep.
Right.
So yeah, it's surprising how many of you already have the hardware to do this. Lois, I'm sure you've got, what did you end up with for your APRS tracker? Was it a TNCX?
I think I have one of those, and I also have a signal link.
Okay, so you've got more than enough hardware to do something with them.
Yeah, I just need to get the time to do it.
Same here. I got the signal link and the TNCX.
Yeah, I was gonna say the TNCX is what Richard was into SPI was recommending when a lot of us started playing with it.
Well, the nice thing is that when one of you gets it set up for the connected packet, you're going to be able to help the rest of you because you've all got similar hardware. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, we're actually down to very few people that don't have hardware right now. I bet you, Paul, if you go in your file cabinet, you're going to have a TNC somewhere. Probably just needs a memory battery replaced. And Patrick, we'll figure out something for you. I know I've got enough hardware that we can set that. Where are you right now, Kevin? Are you in Oneonta still?
Yeah, I'm in my hole.
Okay. I didn't know if you went point south with the motorhome yet or not.
No, I wanted to, and unfortunately, things got a lot of control.
Yeah, I heard about that. I just didn't know if you had pulled chops yet or not.
But yeah, what I need to do personally is I've got a laptop. I need to get a new screen in it, and then I need to be able to make a connection between the radio and the laptop.
Oh, we can do that. Okay. In fact, I can give you a Motorola radio, and I have a handful of Motorola plug because the Motorola's are easy. You just use the 8-pin connector in the front, and I've got them set up for certain TNCs.
Yeah, I've got the Motorola radio here because you gave me one already to play with. So I think we just need to program. That's the other thing. We need to program in the
packet frequencies.
Yep, and I think that should be all set.
That's easy to do. So yeah, actually almost everybody on this call has the hardware in one form or another. That's pretty cool.
I'm just lacking a wire. That's it. So
wires are easy.
Okay.
Usually. So just gotta. What do you have for? You said you had a TNC or interface, Kevin?
No, it's got a laptop.
USB, I believe.
Oh, okay. So we still need to get you need to get a TNC or audio interface.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you guys help me out with that if you don't mind.
Actually, I have stuff that's
okay.
More working pretty quick.
I mean, if
using
you
the
need
sound
a few bucks
card
or something,
I believe me, I've been trying to get rid of hardware around this place.
Okay.
I'm starting to see empty spaces in my basement and my garage, so that's kind of a cool thing. I'm more than happy to start giving stuff away. I don't want to be the hoarder when I'm dead and old and my kids have to deal with it,
That's what we started doing here, cleaning everything else, because my daughter and granddaughter said they don't want anything.
Yeah, it's just good. It's all going in a dumpster, Dad, when you go. Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, this is awesome. This really is just enough to say, oh, I really can try this because I got a lot of the hardware. So, and then there'll be a gazillion questions once you start. Well, how do I do this? What's this command for that? What can I do this for? Why would I use that? That, and we can always have discussions about that. That makes for more conversations when we meet up or, have Zoom calls or whatever. And we can, tech night over in Norwich if anybody's doing it over there. John and Matt are learning quite rapidly. They know the basics, but they haven't gotten on the air until just the last couple of weeks, so that they're learning the commands. And it's
I've played with it a little bit over IP. I just haven't played with it over the air as much. So it's a lot to learn, slowly but surely.
And don't call me Shirley.
Well, one thing I noticed when you were typing in the commands, it was, to me, it was just like the old, the MS-DOS commands for AutoCAD. And
very, very similar. You'll find all those DOS commands and a lot of, in fact, when you log into the bulletin boards, they've got FTP servers and stuff like that, but you got to know how to navigate around, find the files, how to upload them, how to download them. And yeah, you're going to need your command line memory to be able to do that. And I can give you all the advanced help documents and everything like that. And you'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's a lot of that there where I just scratched the surface tonight. And mostly I wanted to get people past, hey, it's not that intimidating, especially I didn't realize as many of you had as much hardware. So that makes it even easier. So yeah, I think everybody will have fun with it, and it's a learning process. But the up there in Wayne County outside of Rochester, I can remotely log into their nodes, and if you look at their hertz list, so there's this thing called hertz list. You can see who's been on the frequency and how long ago they were on. And when you go up there and check in, they've got 10 or 15 people up there that are on there every day. You can see, oh, they were heard 7 minutes ago. Wow. They've got active packet stations running. Some of them do what they run their own mailboxes on their TNC, meaning you log into their TNC and leave a message for them. I find that very painful personally. That's why we have the bulletin board system. I can just log into the bulletin board, leave a message for you. When you log into the bulletin board, you get your message. So you don't have to run your own mailbox. I don't have to know that you run a mailbox or anything like that. Or I can leave a message for like you, Dave. And if you register on Jeff's bulletin board and I put it into my bulletin board, it'll forward it over to Jeff's. So when you log into Jeff's, you'll get your forwarded message. So that it's, a lot of fun stuff like that. And like I said, all this came about. We built this packet network in the early 90s. Because that was when we first started getting online computer systems like CompuServe, and you dialed in to New York City and spent huge amounts of money on long distance phone bills. That's when the Oneonta Club was huge. We built packet networks because everybody wanted to be in the connected information age, but they didn't want to pay these phone bills, and there weren't local dial-up numbers or anything. And long distance wasn't a free thing or a one price pay all long distance. So that's where we built these networks. Well, when the internet started getting faster and you could have a full-time connection, tell the chief I said hi, Lois. And and so people stopped using these 1200 baud systems. But I think it's an important skill to have, especially when we can go portable. When you can be out there, and especially if we get deployed somewhere in, say, Delaware County on a search and rescue mission, and there's no cell phone coverage, you can make a, you get a 50-watt mobile hooked up to your laptop and you're blasting email in and out, and everybody else is like, I got no coverage here. And you don't have to use satellites. It's a pretty impressive feature to have. And we've used it in emergencies in the past. So it's cool to have those old skills, I guess. Anybody else got any questions? We've been going on here for 2 hours now. You got anything, John?
No, I'm just over here trying to find a USB to serial adapter that
works.
Well, I've got one that I thought I haven't used it before, but it shows up under USB bus controllers, but it's not showing up under COM ports.
And I'm going to guess that that's a prolific chipset, and you'll probably say the driver's not working. And you
that's the thing. I mean, it shows up as functioning fine.
Yeah,
but
it won't. Trust me.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I just unplugged the Baofeng one that I used, so that I could switch. So that, like I said, that was working. But I know I've got others.
That might be an FTDI chip and not a prolific chipset. If it's an FTDI,
no, that was a prolific because I had to roll it back, and there was no question that was a prolific, or a counterfeit prolific. So just trying to remember where I put the stuff. So
all right, well, I'll put some links up on the Facebook page, and like I said, for now that everybody realizes they've got what they've got, they can probably do some Google searching for directions on how to use their specific flavor of what they've got or what they want to try, and it'll probably make a little more sense to you than it would have before this demonstration tonight. I want to start seeing some new call signs on the hertz lists on the nodes.
Yeah, and you have questions, ask. I know Dave, get some of the software. I like the AGWP was nice because, you didn't have, everything was there as a GUI. I know that's one thing with Direwolf.
said, just get the AGW terminal. I think that program is free, and you'll just talk to the Direwolf rather than talk to Packet Engine Pro.
Right, exactly. And Direwolf, you just have to go in and it's a text configuration file. But for the most part, all you have to do is go in and tell it what sound card you want to use, and it goes in. But it's a little bit different than what some people would expect. But
well, I know, because
it works well.
If Dave's got his TNCX, he's not going to be doing the sound card. He's just going to connect to the TNC over a COM port with his 857. So that's all he's going to do is take the AG term to communicate.
Oh, okay. Well, even a lot of them I know, even with hardware TNCs, a lot of times they're saying, use either Direwolf or AGWP engine so that you could share it between multiple programs.
It's going to overcomplicate things for most people to get started.
Gotcha.
They can do that later. We don't want multi-port, so you don't want to be going to let's just get a terminal program that talks KISS and use the COM port. Don't make it complicated. As we say in the Navy, let's not nuke this, John. That refers to our Navy Nuclear Power School graduates that always wanted to get the Rickover and nuclear reactor solution to just getting the pencil out and writing the answer down, Lois is laughing, so I know she's heard that before.
What's that, APEW or GW?
AGWP.
AGWP.
You'll see it referred to as Packet Engine Pro, but you want AGW term for just the terminal program that's designed to talk to that Packet Engine Pro.
Packet Engine?
Yep. Well, it's AGW terminal program is what you want, because you'll just set that up to talk to the COM port in KISS mode, and that should work with your TNCX pretty good.
Yeah, because you won't need the AGW packet engine part.
He won't need sound card anything because he's got the TNC.